I'm Isaac Zablocki. I'm Director of Film Programs at the Marlene Meyerson JCC Manhattan. And I'm here with the Director of Incitement, Yaron Zilberman. We're going to start in just 1 minute. I'm going to let everybody get settled. This is the time where I like to tell everyone to flip through the pages and look at your friends. Feel your community out there. See who you know. See who's, check out people's living rooms, their pajamas, whatever they're showing. And we'll get started in just a minute. So you can use gallery view now, but I recommend once we get started on the top right to click on speaker view. So it'll be more individualized. And we'll just let 1 more minute for people to join, and then we'll jump into our conversation. I'll start by asking a few questions, and then we'll open it to questions from the audience as well. And you could submit your questions through the chat, and then we will be actually opening your mics up so you can ask the questions in a live format once we call on you. So that's one way to do it. Let me start by also sharing that it's been a busy week. We had a screening of Abe earlier this week. You could check that out online. We hope you all have already seen Incitement. If not, you could. We have a direct link that you can watch it through a virtual cinema, which some of the proceeds go back to the JCC, which is nice. That has been shared in the chat. If you haven't seen it yet, grab it while you can. Then we're on Thursday night, late night, we have our Tikkun Shavuot, which is an all-night event, and that is going to go on at midnight. We are actually having a conversation with the creator of Unorthodox, the Netflix hit series. So join us for that, for those of you who are up at night or staying up all night for the Tikkun. It's always a fun event. There's many different events going on all night long as part of this program. So join us for that and many more. It's opening with a conversation with Kululam, and Idan Reichel will be joining in the wee hours of the morning for those who stay up all night. Achinoam Nini, many more. Also coming up is our Israel Film Center Festival. This is the most important one to check out right now, June 7th to the 14th, some of the best new films out of Israel. Join us for that, and check out all of the films online. We've shared the link here in the chat at israelfilmcenter.org/festival. So check out all of the wonderful films and join us for a whole week of films and conversations. We just announced our guests. We have amazing guests joining us, some of the leading stars and directors out of Israel. But now it gives me great pleasure to jump into tonight's program. We're honored to have here Yaron Zilberman. Yaron, thank you for joining us.
My pleasure. Thank you for inviting me.
A pleasure. And I'm gonna start by really, I think my most important question for this film, I'm diving right into the juicy stuff. We'll get into some of the technical stuff later on, but I found this film, as much as I actually was in Israel during the Rabin's assassination, and it hit very close to home for me. But more importantly, at this time, I felt that for an international audience, this film is not, you didn't have to be in Israel and to cry at Rabin Square and light candles there to feel connected to this film. I felt that, and appropriately it was called Incitement, I felt that it touched on an element that was very universal and something that's going on right here in America right now and in many other communities in the world. Can you tell us a little bit about why it was important for you to make this movie right now?
Yeah, I think that you answered most of the answer you already answered with the question. The truth is that, there are always two aspects for making a movie. Hopefully at least two aspects. One is the personal, and the other is, I would say, the social aspect, we as artists living in the world. And these two things, in this case, collided very strongly. One is just seeing, the time we're living in, which is all about incitement, and we see, politicians using politics of division and of violence, and this has became, the general way of conducting politics, which we find it to be horrible and really divisive. So that's the, on a big level, which means we saw Israel being and democracy all over the world being attacked severely by politicians, and we thought that it's urgent to tell that story. On a personal level, both myself and Ron Lesher, my co-writer, we, are in a way traumatized. Not only us, of course. It's at least half of Israel population were traumatized by Rabin's assassination for many reasons. I mean, the obvious one, which is just an assassination of a prime minister, which is the symbol of democracy. We all go every 4 years, hopefully 4 years, to elect a president or a prime minister in the case of Israel to, lead the country. And that symbolizes, it's really of the democratic process. And when you assassinate a prime minister, it's, any murder is horrific and huge pain for the individual. I mean, the family, his family, or everybody connected to him. But in case of a prime minister, it's like a father figure to the nation. And Rabin was that. So that was really shocking. And in particular, this assassination was made by an Orthodox Jew on partly religious grounds, or religious logic at least, and religious fanaticism. So fanatics, and that combination, again, on a personal level, as a personal trauma, and on more of a society level, national level, if you will, called for action. And as artists, this is what the most we can do, is to create something that will address this issue. And that's what we've done. It took us 5 years to make the movie, and this is the result, is the Incitement.
So after talking about how general and universal this film is, on the more specific level, one of also the strong elements of the film is that you managed to really, first of all, it looks like the video images of the time. And in general, you managed to recreate very, very specifically that period leading up to, I think, sorry for those who didn't see it, sorry if there's spoilers, but leading up to the end where you actually took the actual footage from the news of the assassination and edited it together with how.
So the document.
Yeah.
We used about, I think I measured about 20 minutes of the movie, which is 120 minutes. So about 20 minutes out of the 120, it's like 17% or something is archival footage. And the reason why we use the archival footage, first and foremost, it's to, relive the periods through that archive. When you see the archive, you really get a feel of how life was at that time. Secondly, it was very important for me to show that it really happened, because what happened in Israel in the past, it's a process that is in the past 7 years, a process where people doubt, how truth became obsolete in the world and everything is like fake news and all these questions about truth and reality. I wanted to show the archival footage in order to set some truth about at least the visual facts, that what we tell is what actually you saw in real life, which means now people doubt whether Yigal Amir actually assassinated Rabin. People think maybe Shimon Peres had some kind of a conspiracy. Maybe it's the Shabak, our security service did it. There's all sort of things. And I'm not talking about the individuals that claim that. I'm talking about, a whole population. There's like 75% of people who live in the West Bank believe that Yigal Amir did not murder Rabin. That's 75%, that's a majority. Or if you see professors in Bar-Ilan universities that claim that there are proofs, there's like a think tank to show that Yigal Amir did not assassinate Rabin, and not to mention the whole movement that says that there was, of course, no influence of incitement on Yigal Amir, that he was this crazy person that acted out of insanity or some kind of a bizarre mental state. So when you see all this denial, watching the archive footage, erase or tries to erase that denial and to show the facts and just to watch them. So there will be no argument about that. So it's also, sort of function as a legal document, so to speak. So you have also the period, which is most important, the legality of it to show that that's the truth. And the third aspect of it is some scenes, for example, Kikar Tzion, when you have this rally of 100,000 people screaming and shouting, partly death to Rabin, or with fire, bedam va'esh, with fire and blood, we're going to oust Rabin. How do you portray 100,000 people in I cannot afford to get 100,000 people, or not 50,000, not 10,000, right? It's
CGI.
It's the entire movie, yes. So instead of CGI, what I decided to do is to take real archival footage from the event and recreate it with, 20, 30, 50, 100 people. And then you mesh them together in a way, in the same lighting, of course, same camera angles, same filming, and you mesh them together in a way that you feel that you are actually living the moment. So you're seeing, oh, it's real, because, oh, it's footage, now I see it's real. And at the same time, you get the magnitude by seeing the archival footage. So these are the three main, purposes that the archival footage are being used in the movie, and to create that kind of feel. In particular, the conclusion of all that is to see Yigal Amir, the person, shooting Rabin on camera, which is, I think it's maybe the only circumstances or the only footage in the world where you can see an assassin shooting a prime minister. You have Kennedy, of course, JFK, but you see JFK being shot. You don't see the shooter. Here, and that's why you have so much conspiracy and what happened. Here you see the shooter shoots the prime minister on camera, live, which is wild. So we used that and recreated this whole thing.
Yes, and still, even though it's captured live, still somehow people can come up with conspiracy theories. I'm wondering, as I'm hearing you, I'm wondering if Yigal Amir didn't exist. I wondered if somebody else would have done the same. What do you think?
Well, speculations, my opinion is as good as any other person. But I can tell you, after 5 years of really living that period again, reliving the period, I can say that there would definitely be people trying, other people trying. I think other people would try. The only way for Rabin to survive, in a way, this assassination attempt would have been somebody that did not have the qualifications that Yigal Amir had, and would miss or hurt or something else, and then Rabin would be totally secured, right? And it would not have happened. But an attempt happened before, like days before. There was an attempt already, but a very sort of immature attempt. Some Orthodox person in Wingate facility near Netanya jumped and tried to, sort of hurt him. But there was no gun, no knife. So that was more, let's call it more innocent kind of attack or naive attack. But somebody would have tried. There's no doubt in my mind. Yigal Amir in particular had this set of abilities that was managed to infiltrate and shoot Rabin, infiltrate into that secured zone and shoot Rabin because of his background in the army and his background in sort of knowing how to handle such situation from his particular experience in the Intifada, etc. So that's why he could have done it. And also his look, being Orthodox, but a Mizrahi Orthodox, which means he didn't have like a beard, and there were no, signs that would have made it impossible for him to stand where he stood when he shot Rabin. Somebody would have taken him out. But he pretended to be a security service man, and he managed to do that.
You bring up the specific that he's Mizrahi, and I felt that was something that was also emphasized a little bit in the film, his family and that family background. Why was that important for you to note so strongly?
Yeah, it was first, I mean, the importance came from the fact that it was what I discovered in research, not that I wanted to impose that on the movie. I just learned from research that there was that issue. When we spoke to his mother, it came about. Again, I'm going to use spoiler, unfortunately. So, because I have to assume that people watch the movie, but you have that first girlfriend, right? And that didn't work out. And
Right.
so the mother said that she was, she spoke to her in racist terms, but of course feeling offended by her on the same grounds. So I knew that, issues of sort of a race issue, so to speak, was there, and class issues that I heard from the family, and also, knowing what happened and knowing that at that period of time in particular where it happened, there was, a movement. There also if you know the story of the Yemenite babies, that there was an accusation that the sort of more Ashkenazi, government supported actually hijacked. It's still an open issue. Nobody knows if it happened or not. It's still in debate, but I know that at that period of time, it was, I think, a fair discussion within the Yemenite community. So all these things bubbled as well. It wasn't just, it was there. So I just, went along with it and let it speak so that I can address all the elements that acted upon Yigal Amir leading to that assassination, trying to understand why he killed Rabin, what influenced him to do that. That would really interest me.
I think it adds definitely another level to it all, and understanding where he was within Israeli society, and to lead to that level of frustration. I'm going to ask one more question, then we're going to take some questions from the audience. I'm curious to reactions to the film. Obviously, in Israel, it's a well-awarded film, and it got the highest award, the Ophir Award. I'm wondering if you got any surprising reactions from the people, and I'm also curious to know how that compares to international audiences as far as the different reactions.
There is a different reaction, absolutely. In Israel, it's very political, so people take it personal. So you would see, there is a dialogue. I would say that's the most surprising thing for me. I expected the more, in a way, violent reaction from the side, that would feel being attacked in a way. So I expected more of that, and actually that was, relatively speaking, moderate, meaning that it really opened the dialogue, which was the purpose, also part of the purpose of the movie. We wanted to start a dialogue with all, levels of society and political affiliations, and I think that happened, really truly happened. We were surprised, positively surprised by the dialogue that it opened, and that was fantastic for us on the good side. However, Miri Regev, the Minister of Culture and the watchdog, Bibi Netanyahu's watchdog, she immediately came about and said, that this movie should not be seen and should not get any awards and so on and so forth. She attacked the movie, with all the might that she can by using her position as the Minister of Culture. She's no longer, by the way, the Minister of Culture, thanks God, in the new government. But so we had that too. We had that, and then we had an open mind by many, right-wing / religious journalists and leaders. We screened it in cities that are 98% Likud party supporters. And again, the dialogue was very, very interesting and very important. So that aspect was surprising. In terms of international audience, it depends also, Jewish or not Jewish. If it's not Jewish, they look at it as just any other movie, and then what they take is how it's related to their country. So I see people from, India, that for them it's Gandhi's assassination. And in France, they see the violence, the religious violence. And so we did get that kind of reaction that was, again, something that we aspired to, and it happened, we were happy. With Jews that are not living in Israel, that was, in a way, the most diverse reaction, because, as you know, sometimes it's hard to criticize Israel. Being, a Jew outside of Israel, you feel that dilemma. And so I try to engage as much as I can in that kind of dialogue. And here we are talking.
And let's hear from some people from our audience. We're going to first turn to Jonathan Zimmett. Jonathan, you have a question. I unmuted you. Oh, for some reason it's not working. Yara, are you able to unmute him?
Yeah, I can hear him.
Oh. Hello?
Hey, hi, how are you?
Okay, good. Okay. Sorry, I have to pull up the question. Here we go. So I wonder why the film, which capably covered the things that leading up to his assassination, didn't touch as much on the aftermath. I was thinking at least briefly two upshots. In the funeral of Bill Clinton's Shalom Chaver speech, especially where he noted the Akedah, where Yitzchak in the Bible was spared, and this murder where Yitzchak was not spared. Yeah. And also that moment where Noah, Rabin's granddaughter, gave her a speech and ended, "Goodbye, Saba, I love you," and sobbing. In other words, the pathos of the events themselves at the funeral.
Yeah, it's a good point. I think the main reason was, that there were two elements for that. The first one is that I felt, after the assassination, I felt that I wanted to leave the audience, and myself included, I'm an audience as well once I finish making the movie. I wanted to be left with more of a feeling of action, in a way, which means it's a call for action for all of us to act in the sense that, fight incitement, for example, be responsible about what could happen and how to try to avoid that from happening, vote against incitement, vote for leaders who don't. So I wanted that kind of feeling as opposed to the feeling of now crying at the end. Mm-hmm. Like watching Noah speak, I start to cry. And the moment I start to cry, or Clinton, the moment I start to cry, I become nostalgic about it. And when I become nostalgic about it, it's more about me going home crying, and then it releases that energy that I wanted you to be left with, which is an energy of, you hear on the roller, the music, it's all drums, and there's like sort of, call for action. So I didn't want to end on that sentiment. Mm-hmm. That's on an artistic level. I
noticed you didn't have Shir L'Shalom, which kind of relates to your point.
Exactly. Exactly. So at some point in the editing, I put Shir L'Shalom, and it was amazing. I took the sister of a friend of mine who's a very good singer, and she did the Moroccan Ma'awal, which was so beautiful. This sort of, it's Moroccan, but it's like Yemenite singing. I cried. I couldn't stop. But I said, that's exactly not where I want this movie to end, because I know then we're just sitting and again crying. I don't want the movie to end that way. That's on that level. But 1 second, I want to say two more things. One is the Oked V'Ne'ekad, the song that the father sings in the synagogue. Oked V'Ne'ekad. It's about Isaac's binding. That's what it is. It's the binding and the bound, or whatever it translated. That's what it's about. It's Isaac, and the father actually prays, sings. It's the highlight of the Yemenite ritual, in the synagogue. It's really the highlight in the year where they sing that, and it's about in Rosh Hashanah, and it's about Isaac. So for me, that was enough of that. I didn't need more, because we gave so much presence to that, and the father crying and begging the son not to do it through prayer on that level. And Bill Clinton saw the movie. I don't know if you're aware of that, but one of the screenings here in New York City, Bill and Hillary came to watch the movie, and he came on stage later, and we spoke about, it, and it was an incredible evening of remembering and insights that he told us, super moving. So I had the closure with Bill Clinton, and I had the Isaac element, the Akedat Yitzchak in that song, and so I got enough of it. And Noah supported the movie tremendously. All Rabin's family supported the movie tremendously.
I think this connects very nicely to our next question, which will come from Bar Kudkovich. Bar, you're on the line.
Hi, thanks so much, Yaron, for joining us. I was wondering if you could explain to us that didn't live through this, and I was actually maybe 3 or 4 years old living in Israel when this happened, so I was a child and I didn't get the proper context. Why exactly was Rabin such a divisive figure? Was there sort of no one else that propagated for peace as much as him up until that point in Israel's history? I always kind of struggle to understand the scope of this hatred that he incurred from people.
Yeah. Okay. This is the answer is very, very long. I'll try just to summarize it by saying that there were people, of course, on the left than him. He wasn't that much of a leftist. I would call him like center left, more center than left, but center left. But Rabin was the person in charge. He was the prime minister, and he decided to make a move, which was not originated by him, was not his vision. The vision was Peres, his foreign minister. And I would say not even Peres. Peres adopted it. Peres was a man of peace, but Peres adopted it from the vision of his the person who manages his office and others, like Uri Savir and Pundak, and there were several, Yossi Beilin, big time. There were a couple of people from the Peres sort of camp that initiated this process, and Peres, of course, championed it, and he convinced Rabin to go for it. And once Rabin went with it, that was the big deal, because he was also loved by right-wing leaning, sort of pro-peace, right-wing leaning individuals, and he managed to get some kind of an acceptance where he got the mandate to go on with this move. So in general, it's not so much that he was, if he were the foreign minister, he would not have been hated as much. He was hated because he was the prime minister making that strong move. That's the first thing. Secondly, he was attacked so severely for so long, and he was he wasn't a diplomatic person. He was very sort of crude in his speaking and his behavior, very what we call tzabar, like you touch and you're being hurt, because he's, he's not like the kissing and hugging type of person. And so he used to speak, he used to counterattack. So he used to speak in a way that I personally, I think that was a mistake on his part. I personally would not recommend him doing that, but that was his personality. He was very tough. His language was very tough with the settlers, with some religious aspect of society. And I think that toughness, the pride plays a major role in all human beings, but in that region, it's huge. It's huge. And if you don't let the other side feel good about themselves, you get a lot of hatred, big time. And I think that was part of his personality. Again, I don't think this is one thing that I criticize him for, but that's who he was. And I think that attracted a lot of hatred towards him.
I think first of all, it's really important that people who were not as familiar with Rabin do see this film, and another generation actually also connects to this topic and asks these questions. So thank you, Bar. I'm going to move over to Steve Friedman. Steve, you have a question. Steve, are you with us? Steve, last try. Okay, I think we're going to move on to the next one. There was a question from Debbie. Debbie, are you available?
No, let's see. Yeah, I was just curious about whether you were concerned about causing empathy. I mean, you know, you have empathy toward the protagonist, and I think it's a kind of a concern, or maybe you had the concern.
Yeah, this is a concern I had from day one when we decided to tell the story through the perspective of the assassin, through his journey, so to speak. So the concern, you know, was there right from the first moment 5 years ago. Nevertheless, I was willing to take that risk in a way, and I'm still happy that we took that risk, because only through going through his eyes, we can really understand what led to the assassination. And it's the only way for us to realize the power of incitement, how it acts upon a person that leads him to kill him. Which means that when I weigh the two things, one is the more responsibility of society, and a major aspect of, you know, politicians and rabbis and university professors and family and friends and all these aspects, that influence was more important for me than the possibility that you will associate with a particular individual and you have some emotions towards him and maybe some, you know, sort of, let's call it understanding. You know, that was for me less of a problem than telling the story through the eyes of somebody else or not telling the story at all. And by that, I think you gain very little in terms of the impact, the emotional impact, the knowledge, the understanding, the insights that you can get from this movie or from telling this movie. So that's my answer. I'm less concerned whether you are going to have some empathy towards Yigal Amir, the murderer, because anyway he's in jail and I hope forever. Right now there's a law that it should be forever. So I hope he'll be in jail forever. So that's his situation, whether you feel towards him or not, it's a situation and that's good. What I hope to show you is how words that, you know, Bibi and other people used to bombard through TV and other means and in propaganda and in protest, this major violent protest, this imposing this agenda and hearing his rabbis talking that Rabin should be assassinated because there are laws in the, you know, the Rambam, the Maimonides, had written hundreds of years ago and, you know, sort of apply them to today, where they should not be applied at all to today. They were applied to completely different situation, completely different era. It was more important for me, for you to see through his eyes how it acts upon him and where does it lead him. And by that, to be able to address a major, major topic in our current life, you know, social life or life of society, was much more important for me.
We're going to take 3 last questions. Steve, I understand you're back with us. Steve, are you there? Hello, Steve. Steve, I'm going to ask on your behalf, if you don't mind. There are actually quite a few questions asking about the parents. You mentioned that you spoke to the parents and did your research with them. What were their reaction to the film? And in general, what was that kind of interaction? And there were many questions in the chat just regarding the parents. How are they reacting to all of this?
Yeah. Okay. So we don't know exactly the reaction for the movie. The father said that he's not going to watch the movie, not because he has a problem with the movie, because he doesn't watch any movies. He's orthodox and he doesn't consider, movies as something that is part of his life. The mother did not say that she saw the movie, but she said that she saw the trailer and that her accent is, she doesn't speak in such accent. And while she said that, she spoke in the exact accent in the movie. that was hilarious for us. Initially, the father went extremely against his son. The mother was also, fearless or very forceful in her criticism, but very soon after, especially the mother, it took, a matter of days. She was already with him, and now she's completely supporting him, and the father as well. And this is nature, that's human behavior, and I understand that, and also accept that they're going to support their son. It happened, it's your son. I don't want anybody.
We have a question
Yes.
from Elizabeth. Elizabeth, are you on? Elizabeth, we can't hear you. I'll read your question since I have it open in front of me. I was a student in my 20s studying in Jerusalem in 1994, 1995. And when I am there to spend time now, sections of Israeli society seem more radicalized. Do you agree or not?
It's hard for me to say. It was so radical back then, and it's so radical today that it's hard for me to say if it's even more. I think it was already like extreme back then, and now it's, super extreme. So it's hard for me to say if it's more. Definitely not less. Yeah, it's a divided country, also here in America. And I think, but I would say that, again, for me, it's about the leaders. Leaders are important, and we all know that they're important, but we tend to forget how important they are in terms of either you divide or you do the opposite, unite the people. That's what it's about. It's how to find a common denominator and try to get people around ideas and not to annihilate anybody. And I think today, this is the way politics is being run. It's not by mistake, or it's not like happened, or it's not about personality. It's the way politics is run. If you want to win elections today, you have to be divisive. And that's very, very sad. And I hope we'll find a solution, again, as a society, a solution, so that we get people elected that are not divisive. How could that happen? Because what we see now, it's the only way to get elected. It's like how you get views and how you get likes and how you get, all that stuff that brings popularity and eventually votes. It's terrible.
This connects beautifully, I think, to our last question, which will come from Kathy Weiss. Kathy, you're on.
I am unmuted.
Yeah.
I am unmuted. Yeah. No, I just thought the footage of Bibi was shocking to me. And I was wondering how his followers looked at that and thought, I mean, he was almost like a crazy person. I don't want to give my political, but I'm not that into Bibi. And I was cheering that this was on, that you showed this. I don't know. Talk to me about the Bibi footage.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm with you. This is horrible. I think that's why the movie is called Incitement. I think it's horrible. I think it's horrible that a leader of opposition does that with all this power. I think it has had an effect on the assassination. There's no doubt in my mind. It's terrible, but you can see what it did like 2 days ago in court. It's exactly the same. It's all about divisiveness to the extreme, not taking any responsibility and saying things that are irresponsible, that can lead people to act of violence. So I had to put it in. Again, this is part of the story. That's what I discovered. I watched this footage. I did not write this footage. I did not bring an actor to act Bibi Netanyahu. I just showed the words. And these words for me are horrible. So, yeah.
Sadly,
again, I just want to say one more thing about, because it's politics. So I do want to say something that it's not about right and left at that moment for me. It's not against the right or for the left not at all. It's about a particular person and how he conducts the business of politics. That's what it is for me. That's the problem, and that's this particular person, this particular individual. That's how he does it. So, you know, that's what I'm blaming, and I'm showing it.
I'm a big believer that film impacts our society in a very deep way. Unfortunately, and this film did not change Israeli society enough in terms of the elections.
Not yet.
But hopefully, right. Hopefully it will trickle down, and maybe even a new generation will see the film.
Exactly. So sometimes it takes time.
Yaron, you want to just share with us what you're working on next? Because I thought that was interesting.
Yes. I'm working now on a 10-episode miniseries about Yom Kippur War, 1973, and through the sort of low-rank soldiers, in a way, on the front line of the north of Israel, being attacked by, in this case, Syria, outnumbered completely, and they have to find a way to stop it, stop the Syrian army from conquering at least the north, if not Israel. But this story, again, it's told through the soldiers. So for me, it's about trying to understand how we as individuals react to such extreme trauma when it happens to us, and we need to function at our best. And so it's about that, and it's about the price of war and how horrific wars are, what it does to an individual. And it has also, again, social tensions in Israel that started, way back. This is 1973 in this case. So things that you will see connection between this movie and that show. There is a relationship in that regard. So that's what I'm doing right now. So it's got a lot of tanks and and soldiers, heroism, but also horrific pain.
Well, we hope to be sharing that with our community. Thank you so much, Yaron. Thank you for being with us. Folks, thank you for joining us and being a part of this conversation and all of your important questions. I know there are many more. Not everything will be answered tonight. Join us, as I mentioned earlier, join us for the Tikkun Shavuot, which is this Thursday night into Friday. We're going to be doing Unorthodox and many, many more events throughout the night. And join us June 7th till the 14th for our Israel Film Center Festival. Get your tickets in advance. Some things will sell out, even though it's virtual. Please stay safe, and we look forward to being able to see everybody together soon. So we need you to stay safe for that. Thank you very much. Thank you all.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Spread the word about seeing this fantastic film. It is such an important film, and it's going to be available on Amazon next week, I believe. So start spreading the word, and they could watch it on the link that you saw it on through the cinemas this week still. So join us there or in other places. Just spread the word. Thank you very much, and have a good night.
Thank you. Good night.